Hi, this is Andrew, aka Drewscape. About 10 years back, I used to join the urban sketches a lot more. If you don't know, sketching is a bit different from illustration because sketching is about, or rather, outdoor sketching is about sketching what you see on location. And it's a lot quicker. You don't really have to think so much. You just let your eyes and your pen just follow the contours of things you see, and it usually relaxes me. It helps me to just forget about everything and just focus on just the line and the atmosphere. And now that I have 2 kids, I have to squeeze in the time to just do this sketching exercise again. One of the opportunities is when I'm parked at a pickup bay waiting for my daughter to come out from school. So here am I in the car sketching and trying to film myself at the same time. I'm just sketching the car parked in front of me, and it's probably another parent waiting to pick up their kid. Sketching from the car is not that different from drawing at a cafe or along the street. From the car, I realize I draw more traffic scenes and I have a lot more privacy. I don't have people looking over my shoulder as I draw. Well, except for you guys on YouTube. The approach I'm using to draw is the contour drawing method. I am just translating everything I see as flat 2D shapes and then outlining them. This allows me to draw pretty quickly. The pen I'm using is a parallel pen 6mm, and I have modified the nib just by sanding down with sandpaper so that it produces line variation very easily. The strategy I'm using here is using thicker lines for the things that are closer to me or the side of objects that are in shade. And I use thinner lines for things that are further away. I also use thinner lines for parts of objects that are brightly lit by the sun. Also, I add a lot less detail, almost no detail, for objects that are further back or out of focus. You can see that the car and the buildings behind, they're just represented very minimally, while the car in front has the most detail. That creates a depth of field effect, just using lines. So I'm back at the same spot waiting for my daughter, and this time I'm going to use a Lamy rollerball pen. This rollerball is really smooth, but it hardly has any line variation. I can get a smooth, thin, solid line if I hold it more upright. If I add a lot less pressure, I could perhaps get a slightly thinner line or a broken line. This time I'm just drawing what's on my left instead of what's in front, and this is the pickup bay. So again, I'm just capturing the shapes I see. If you have ever attended my sketching classes, I usually advise students to combine objects, create a big shape and capture the bigger shapes first, then move on to the smaller shapes. I'd say that that's still the better practice, especially when you are starting out, trying to see everything as shapes. This scene has lots of angles and details. To address the stress of capturing all the details, I give myself permission to draw things a little distorted. Or even if they're misaligned, I tell myself that's okay. Giving myself license or permission to have a certain level of imperfection in my drawing make drawing a lot less stressful and more enjoyable. With thinking like this, that's how you could end up with a looser style for your drawings, if you like this kind of style. Now, I don't want to leave the drawing as just a bunch of outlines, so I'm adding in the darker tonal values first. With a rollerball being a smooth pen, line hatching is a good way to achieve this. To get a darker tonal value, just hatch the lines closer together. And for the slightly lighter values, I try to hatch the lines slightly further apart and also use minimal pressure to get those broken lines. And then just finishing up some small details. I won't have time to color these sketches before my daughter arrives, so I'll do the coloring at home. Alright, I'm back home and let's find that sketch page. So now I have to decide how am I going to color this. I usually finish up these sketches with watercolor washes. But the problem here is I use non-waterproof ink to do these lines. One option would be just to scan it and color these digitally. But then I'm thinking, let's up the challenge a bit more. How about I use this coloring technique I've used a couple of times in my picture book projects. It essentially involves painting this scene with paint on a separate sheet of paper and then combining it digitally with the lines on this paper. I have not tried it for an outdoor sketch like this, but there's a first time for everything. So let's do it. So I've taken a high resolution photo of the sketch and imported it into my iPad. In Procreate, I'm creating a layer over the sketch, filling it with a light color, and setting that layer to screen. I'm making the color a warm tone so that even if the acrylic doesn't cover it, it'll still look fine. Now I'm printing it out on my inkjet printer. Should I use the printout on white paper or brown paper? I figure I'll go with the brown paper. It has more texture, and it's already a mid-tone, so there's less filling up to do. So I'll use this light colored printout to know exactly where to paint. And acrylic being an opaque medium when thick, I'm just going to cover over the lines. I am just blocking in the colors very loosely. Yeah, I have to keep telling myself, keep it loose. And I've just one simple goal to hit for. I want to keep the car in the foreground a lighter tonal value, and the objects around the car a slightly darker or darker tonal value. That will allow the car to stand out. Making the car's rear window darker will also contrast with the whiteness of the car, and that will make the car stand out. Notice those 3 red areas in the picture? That's something I learned from my friend Tia. Somehow those 3 red areas will serve as a stepping stone for the eye to journey through the picture. Now for the second picture, the strategy isn't to focus on the details. In my mind, I'm just simplifying it into areas of dark tonal values or light tonal values. The parts that are further out are lighter, and the parts deeper in are darker. I always think that it's important to make the darks dark enough so that it'll stand out against the lighter midtones and the brighter parts. So now that I'm done with the color layer, I'm gonna combine it digitally with the lines that are already on my iPad. So I snapped a high-res picture of the painting with my phone, imported it into my iPad, and now I'm going to bring this painting to the same file as my lines. I'll put the acrylic painting layer below the line layer and set the line layer to multiply. So now you can see the painting through the line layer. But before I go further, I'm tweaking the colors of the acrylic painting using color balance. With this, I can make the painting more warm with warmer colors or cooler with more blues and greens. I'm going with more warmer colors. Now it's time to align the line layer to the color layer. It's not that hard with modern technology. I'm just duplicating the color layer in case I mess it up. And then I just enlarge it, just dragging it to fit. And it does not need to be perfect since it's a loose drawing. And another wonderful tool I use is Liquify. With this, I can push parts of the painting around like plasticine. At the same time, I'm reminding myself not to make it too perfect since the lines are in a loose style. But if this was a tighter drawing, I would make sure the colors matched more perfectly. Now let's see the rest of it in Procreate's time-lapse video. Digitally, I tweaked the colors and made the tonal values more distinct from each other. And here we have the final. I love how the acrylic paints contributed to all this rich texture. Now go try this out for yourself. Thanks for watching.